What's going on, everybody? It's the Mad Hatter, aka the Shadow Tamer, and this go around, I want to talk about Sage Steele, who's an ESPN reporter and anchor, and she's getting kind of dragged through the fire right now for some Instagram for an Instagram post that she posted based on Donald Trump's executive order banning Muslims or banning people from Muslim and Arab-dominated countries. And so this executive order led to many people who were of legal status, who either had green cards or visas. This led to a lot of them being detained at airports and actually having no idea what their status was, even though they went through all the legal and the proper ways of coming to this country and they did their work. And a lot of government contractors who risked their lives working with Americans next to American contractors and soldiers. A lot of these people got the big middle fucking finger from the United States president and his administration. So that's what happened. And what that led to was a lot of people protesting at some of the various and popular airports around the United States, in particular JFK and Dulles and LAX and SFO in San Francisco. Now, Sage Steele, who has a history of being quite political, even though she does this really tricky thing where she makes it as though she's not political, and I'll get to that later. But Sage Steele, who has a history of this, she sent out an Instagram post. She's trying to go to LAX. Obviously, the Super Bowl's coming up, and she was mad because she got slowed up or she got held up at the airport. So this is what she sent. She sent a picture of a lot of people protesting, and then she wrote this. She wrote, quote, "So this is why thousands of us dragged luggage nearly 2 miles to get to LAX, but still missed our flights. Fortunately, a 7-hour wait for the next flight to Houston won't affect me that much." Okay, so if it won't affect you that much, why is it that much of a problem for you? "But my heart sank for the elderly and parents and small children who did their best to walk away, but had no chance of making their flights. I love witnessing people exercise their right to protest, but it saddened me to see the joy on their faces knowing that they were successful in disrupting so many people's travel plans. Yes, immigrants were affected by this as well. Brilliant." And then she had an American flag, end quote. So she does this really tricky thing, and a lot of people that kind of have this mentality of hers who share similar mentalities, they act like they really care about the elderly and the children and stuff like that. But my question is, what about the elderly and the children of immigrants and people who are refugees and people who are escaping harsh conditions, people who are escaping death knocking at their door because of our involvement in their countries, a lot of times, because of us involving arming rebels of these countries like in Syria. And what about those children and those elderly? So you're more worried about the children and elderly who are privileged enough to be in the United States to fly wherever they want to fly, probably for a vacation this time of year or something, but not the people who are in dire situations. You don't have any feelings for that. So, and then, the main thing she talks about is, this is why thousands of people, uh, drag their luggage nearly 2 miles to LAX, she said. That's the reason? No, the reason is because of Donald Trump's executive order. That's why thousands of people are pulling their luggage from miles. Like, you have to look at the root of the cause. It's because of the United States, our involvement in a lot of these countries, which is bullshit to begin with, and it's because of Donald Trump's executive order. That's why people are protesting. So let's not forget what was there to begin with, the actions that started this. Now, Sage Steele has a history of kind of being political, even though she acts like she's not. Now, during the Celebrity All-Star game, I believe the last year for the NBA, Arcade Fire's Win Butler was the MVP, and he had a little speech that he had, ready to go about healthcare in Canada. And, Sage Steele cut him off as basically she was like, "No, we don't talk about politics here. Let's just stick to sports." And then she kept going. It's like, okay, you can make that point. And then she also has been known to call out Obama. He came on to ESPN one time and he was touting his health care. and she basically called what he did comical. Now, people make the argument that sports and politics should be separate, but in my opinion, sports is very political. You have people from all different backgrounds coming together to play a sport where a lot of money is, and these people are celebrities and they have political influence. Not just that, but the owners donate money to political causes and to lobbying groups. So it's just the dumb fans that don't like your politics, is what it comes down to. Because this sport is a very political sport to begin with. I mean, they freaking bring in the military and they force you to, salute the military during a sporting event, but nobody complains about that. So overall, I think that there's this idea that she thinks that she's siding with the status quo, right? And she thinks that she's being neutral by saying like, look, man, I just want to go to work. I just got things I got to do. I'm just trying to be a hardworking citizen, and I'm trying to give back to, I'm trying to pay my taxes. But really, what she's doing is she's remaining silent in dire times. She probably would have been one of those people, where some shit was going down. Like people are making the joke right now, where it's like, you know, um, Rosa Parks, if she was there at Rosa Parks, she'd be like, "Come on, Rosa, let's go in the back of the bus." I got places to go, I got bills, I gotta, pay, I got kids to feed. Just get in the back of the bus and just put your head down and just accept it, okay? Now, another ESPN host, Dan Lebitard, he is he's the son of immigrants, and he is a someone who had to escape persecution and was a refugee. And he says that what this shows is that this is the height of privilege, he said. And then he's getting at ESPN by basically saying, how can there's a memo sent out by ESPN saying, don't talk politics. But how is it okay for Sage Steele to talk about this politics but nobody else? He's like, look, he's like, I get it. If you don't want to talk about politics, we're not going to talk about politics, but you got to keep it even across the board. How can you allow Sage Steele to say what she says but nobody else to speak from the other side, especially people who are directly affected by this? And my thing is like, so what Sage Steele is basically doing is she's taking the side of this kind of law and order. She's one of those types that's like, we need law, we need order in this country, and everything will be all right. But how can you be mad at unlawfulness but be okay with the illegal detainment of legal persons? These are professors, these are contractors, these are people who have paid their dues, and because of this blanket executive order that Donald Trump sent out, they're losing their livelihood. So how can you be okay with that? And then, the last thing I want to say is really like you got held up 7 hours and that's what you're really so mad about? That is what's caused you to write a Twitter or an Instagram rant. Meanwhile, people's livelihoods are being affected. People's lives are in danger because of our actions around the world, but you're not that pissed off about that, but you're mad because you had to wait 7 hours to go to the Super Bowl to report. Like, how hard can that really be? Like, what are you really getting at? What are you really sacrificing by reporting on the fucking Super Bowl? So I want to leave that there. Um, you guys let me know what you think. I have no problem with people talking about politics, but what I do have a problem is with people like who try to act like they're not political, but they are. Like they don't want to take ownership for what they do. Like if you're gonna be political and make these statements, back it up, but don't run away from the situation and act like you were just being neutral on the situation. So that's where I want to leave that. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm out.